Hello, and welcome to Shortcut Up CNC. Today we're going to talk about offset vectors. Here we have a bunch of vectors in different orientations, and they're open and closed vectors. And some of the vectors that look closed may not be closed. They may be open vectors. They just happen to look closed. So this is going to be fun. Okay, I also created a new layer for creating the new vectors on, rather than having them create on the same layer. Click here. These are the original vectors, and the layer we're on is empty right now. There's nothing on it, and it's indicated by no lines on this little page right here. Whereas you can barely see the lines on this one that indicates that there's stuff on that layer. Okay, now we're going to click there and we're going over here to the offset. Before we do that, well, we're going to take a look at this real quick first. I have a reason for that. Well, outwards we're going to select, and it outwards is for closed vectors, right is for open vectors, inwards closed, left open vectors. And I'll show you those two different features in just a few minutes. And then you have both directions. And we're going to go make it 1/4 of an inch. We're going to create sharp offset corners so that all the rectangles and anything that's got a sharp corner will remain so. It won't round the corners off when it offsets the vector, the new vector. We don't want to delete the original. In your case, you may. But in this particular demonstration, I'm not going to delete the original, and I'm not going to have it reselect the new. I'm going to click here, and it's going to tell me that the no suitable vectors. That's because I didn't choose the vectors. Okay, so now we hit Control A on my keyboard, and I can't very well see whether it actually selected it or not. There we go. Now all the vectors are selected, and I'm going to say offset outwards. Now, it offsetted everything outwards or to the right. Now, I'm going to click that in the drawing area to turn some things off here. And if you notice, everything that looks closed it looks closed. But now if I go and I reselect my original vectors, which is the red vectors, you'll see a little rectangle that shows up, and that is indicating that it's an open vector. Now, you notice this one here and this one in the upper right corner, they looked closed, but they're not necessarily closed, and they created the vector to the right of the original vector, which is outside also because it looked closed. But that doesn't necessarily mean that because it looked closed, it made it to the right, to the outside. It did it to the right of the vector because right is for the open vector and left is for an open vector. This up here is very helpful in understanding the vectors, whether they be open or closed. And to show you this on the, okay, something happened with my vectors here. So I gotta select the original vector. Okay, that's in red. Okay, there we have our little indicators. And in the vertical direction, you notice it's on the right side of the original vector. And you look, if you're for example, if you're standing on this and you're looking in the direction of the vector, it is on the right side. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the next one, which is the inner left. And we're going to make sure that this is on. And in fact, make sure both of them are on. And we're going to switch this to the inner, but I only want to select the original vectors. Actually, I don't have to do that. I can actually just go and select all the original vectors in red, holding the shift key down. Select all in red. Okay. Now I say offset inwards, keep the sharp offset corners, and boom, it created everything to the inside or to the left. Here you look at the original vector, it went to the left side of the vector. If you're standing on this vector, it went to the left side of the vector. Left side, that's okay. And left side here. Same thing here, left side. Here's another situation. It went open vector, looked closed, but it went to the left. So there you can see how the written information here correlates to the vectors, whether they be open or they be closed. And what may look closed is not necessarily closed. And this little addition was done on the last revision or upgrade of the software. They added this little square so that you can tell where the start of the open vector is. Rather than going to the node edit mode and looking for that little green square, they've already added whenever you select a vector, it puts that little square on the vector, open vector. So if I select a closed vector, it's going to not show a little square. All right, now something that I ran into a while ago or a while back is things can change when you've got the vectors overlapping each other. And the offset and inwards can play tricks on you if you're not really paying attention, and it can have some funny things going on. So let's turn off the new vectors, and we're going to play with the original vectors here. We're going to overlap some of these vectors. Let's bring this one up here. We're going to eliminate the open vectors lines, and we'll take this square rectangle. We'll bring it up over here like this, and we'll leave the star as it is so we can see what's happening with the opening and closing, open vectors versus closed vectors. Now remember, this rectangle is an open vector, this rectangle is an open vector, so it's going to create some interesting effects when you try to use the offset vectors. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select all. Well, before I do that, let's go turn this layer off, bring that one back on, do a Control A, delete all those, and we'll go back to the original. Well, leave that on, both of them on, so we can see those, and we'll be creating the new vectors on the new layer. All right. Well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the outwards, and I'm going to change, well, leave it 250, see what happens with this. Create sharp corners for anything that's got a sharp corner. And we're going to do a Control A in the drawing area. It shows me that I've got 2 open vectors and the rest are closed. And I'm going to offset this. And of course, it's going to tell me that it has overlaps and intersections, which may lead to unexpected results. And if you move this message out of the way and take a look at your design, it may be okay the way it is. Then those open vectors, you may want them closed. It may have been an error on your part, but in this case, it's not an error. I did that deliberately, so I'm going to say continue anyway. Now, you notice interesting here. When I did that, the open vector created the vector, but it also opened up the vector. It didn't leave, it didn't join it or anything. It just, anytime you expand, it's going to bring this outward. Okay. It's going to, and that's natural. Same thing here. It increased the size and it didn't put anything in between here. So that shows now that it's an open vector. You can actually see it. Whereas this one here, it looked like it was closed. But also notice something else here. When you overlap a closed with an uh, open vector, they create exactly the way you asked. But when you have overlaps on 2 closed vectors, it joined them on the outside. It joined them together. So that's what I was about to show you, that you can get some weird things happening. And if that's what you wanted, hey, great. But then again, here we have an open vector, closed vector, and they adjusted the way it's supposed to. The open vector just opened its vector. The closed, 2 closed vectors here joined together to create an open vector. So that's what that means when you get that requester for unexpected results. It can give you some crazy stuff. So let's go to the vectors, leave the original vectors, and we're going to Control A again, delete these, and we're going to change this to inwards. Make sure these are both on. Do a Control A for all select vectors, and it's going to go inwards. And again, we get that requester for unexpected results. We'll say continue anyway. And you notice things look a little different. The unexpected results is what it made this an internal vector, that an internal vector, that internal vector. Did nothing to this one because it really cannot do it. And the same thing for this one here. It cannot do it because they overlap. When you go inside, when it decreases, it overlaps each other. So it's not going to create the vector, the new vector. It does not know what to do with that. So when you got open vectors, it will not work for the inwards direction because they'll over when the close when I should say is open vectors this close together, it will not create a new vector. And of course, this one was a closed vector, and it didn't do anything with that one either. I'm not sure why. And then this one did to the inside, and it gave some unexpected results. And I don't understand exactly why that occurred in that what manner, but it did. But that's what you can expect for unexpected results. So now we're going to go to the layer here and keep the original vectors. Control A, delete those, and we're going to do a both. And that's going to be even more interesting. Turn this back on for our original vectors. Select Control A to get all the vectors selected. And we're going to say both to that. And of course, it's going to give this requester once again unexpected results. Continue anyway. Wow. It created it in both directions on the closed vectors. Okay. On the open vector, it did the outward direction, but not the inward direction. And then on this one, it created an out and an in for the circle, but no inward for the rectangle here. Not exactly understand why, but it didn't. And that's the unexpected results that you can achieve when you've got this type of situation. And again, like I said, the open vectors being this close together, looking like a closed vector, it will not create an in because it does know what to do with it. But it will create an outward because it can expand. Same here. It does not know what to do with the inward direction, but it does know what to do with the outward direction. And I should say inward left and outward right, because this is an open vector. The open vector is defined as left or right. Closed vectors outward or inward. So there you have all the different situations you can have with offset vectors. And I won't say all the different conditions. I mean, there are a whole ton more of unexpected results that you can come up with. But this somewhat explains the outwards versus right, inwards versus left, and the both directions. Delete original, that's just what it says. It deletes the original and keeps the new vectors. You can keep it work all on the same layer. And then select new. That's what it does is it selects the new vector if you keep both vectors available. That way you don't get confused what was old and what was new. And all I did was create layers to separate the two. So again, enjoy the offset vectors. And thank you for watching Shark Cut Up CNC.